Welcome to a little different format of a show. I am traveling as you hear this, so we'll do a one-on-one with Skylar Astin. Skylar is an actor, he's a musician, he's a singer, he's was featured in my sitcom pilot from '09, which we can talk about as well. Pitch Perfect, of course, you probably know most from, and then just recently, Grey's Anatomy. Good to see you, Skylar.
Good to see you.
All right, so let's see. Where do we start with you? I remember, I don't know if I've ever told you this one, but we were looking, I was doing a sitcom pilot for CBS, and we were looking far and wide for the man who would play my stepson.
Right.
And Skylar came in it's a very pressure-filled environment. You audition in this little theater on CBS, or a little studio on CBS Radford's lot, and you sit there with the producers, and you sit there with the creators, and you sit there with the network people. And Skylar hit it out of the ballpark. But what happened? Well, talk about that process. It's kind of interesting.
Well, for me, I actually had a pre-read because I was new to LA. So I had to, before I could see you guys, I had to read with the casting director. And I kind of made this like outrageous choice because the character on paper was like a Russell Brand type. He wears skinny jeans and like he's kind of a hipster. And I just kind of wasn't that. And I was like a little bigger at that time. And so I just kind of like went with like a Seth Rogen knocked up version. And I wore actual like dirty, disgusting sweatpants that I just didn't wash, Crocs, a ripped shirt, and kind of did the whole scene like I was on LSD.
And it utterly worked after looking at tens of guys. When Skylar left, everyone looked at each other and they went, okay, we found your stepson. And then the network, their people left, and it was just our people left behind. And the network people like, all right, we got it, signed off. And before they left, I was like, he's a big dude. He's supposed to be 19. Does he play like Pam Adlon was your mom? And like, she's, 42, but she looks like she's 28, and she's a pixie. And then you're 19, but you look like you're 29. I said, I like this guy, but does he seem too big or too old? And they said, no, we like him. And then they left. The network left. And then the producers looked at me and went, shut your mouth. And I said, why? I created the show. And they said, listen, if the network signs off, you don't say anything because we finally found our guy. And I was like, I'm just saying he seems old and big for this role.
Right.
And they're like, you don't ever say anything once that. And then when we shot the show and tested it, the test came back, was like, he seems too big to be.
Is that what they said? I'm sorry I tanked your pilot, dude.
he said he seems too old to be Pam Adlon's daughter. They never say sorry, by the way. They just go, oh, okay, here's the information we got. I'd go, like, all right.
Well, shit, man, you should have recast me and done the show.
Oh, it was doomed from the start. But Skylar was super funny in it. And we had that funny scene where you're supposed to be up on the ladder.
Yeah.
Wearing a kilt?
Wearing a kilt.
And I guess Jimmy Kimmel thought it'd be funny if you took your underpants off.
Yeah, I flashed you my balls. But also I'm kind of maybe that's why we didn't get picked up, because we were pulling pranks on the pilot. Like thinking we're already like cushy. We're like season 3, we're pulling pranks, so rubber chickens.
You were just fresh out of New York?
Yes.
Out to LA to pursue acting, and that was like one of your first potential gigs.
It was my first gig, for sure.
Wow, that was your first thing.
My first TV gig. I had done movies and I've done Broadway, but that was my first TV series regular gig. First pilot.
Ah, well, sorry.
Yeah, well, it gave me the reality check I needed.
I think it worked out for you okay, though, Skylar.
I think so, but I mean, that was the one that got away.
I also was looking at Wreck-It Ralph here that I forgot I was in. And you
play Litwak, right?
I played one of the cops.
Oh, the cops? Are you not? Oh, got it. Well, I actually worked on that for years because I did all the scratch recordings. So when I was, instead of collecting unemployment, once that ran out, I was doing all of, I was creating all the characters. And so I was working with the director, and I would do the John C. Reilly voice, I would do the Jack McBrayer voice, I was creating characters that never even made it to screenings. So
Really?
I was doing it for like years. They would call me in every week and just give me sides, and they would animate to my voice.
So how did this start for you? I know you're from New York. I know your dad was in the garment industry. I
Yes,
think.
he was.
Not a showbiz family.
No, far from it.
How did this start for you?
I mean, my grandpa's always played trumpet. He was like very into jazz and into music. We've been fans of music and musicals, but I grew up playing sports and played piano though since I was 5. My parents had this grand piano in our house, and they're like, one of you kids is going to play it. So I drew that straw, thankfully, because now I actually have that very piano in my house here in California. And yeah, I did a lot of sports, and then my mom kind of could tell that when I would go to theater, I would get excited. And I saw a specific show, Jekyll and Hyde, and it's obviously everyone knows there's a transition from the actor from character to character, and I thought that was like fascinating. That actor blew me away. It's the first time I was like, oh, we're not just watching like real fiction. Like there are people pulling strings here, and there's like work being done, and I was fascinated by that at like a young age. And then once I was a teenager, my mom could tell that I had a bit of interest, and so she kind of bullied me into auditioning for the local play. She bribed me with an Italian meal in that neighboring town. And after basketball practice, she's like, look, if you sing, whatever, I will take you to Torriello's or Tarantello's or one of those places. And I thought that I knew that it was only till 6 p.m. We were 20 minutes away. It's about 5:50. So I'm like, this is great. I'm going to be too late for the audition. I'm going to get the meal. Turns out they were running late. I sang Happy Birthday. There were no guys. I got the lead role. And then my life did a total 180 because I was like, I guess I have to do this.
How old were you?
I was about like 13, 14.
And was it that from that point on, did you finish high school?
Yes, I did. I got like bitten by the bug, and then so I was super into it. I went from like a really intense all-boys sports camp the year before to then going to like a theater camp the next year. Was kind of juggling baseball and theater, and then theater just fully took over. By the time I was 17, I started doing workshops in Manhattan. Got my first Broadway workshop, which eventually ended up being the show Spring Awakening, which went on to win 8 Tony Awards, and it kind of was history from there.
What was your sport? Was it basketball and baseball?
It was baseball and a little basketball.
How serious were you about your baseball?
Pretty big. State champ.
Really?
Yeah, state champ. And also we won my like Little League before the Little League World Series was a thing. There was this thing called the Tournament of Champions where the champions would kind of all compete in different districts, and we won that. There's a plaque outside my Little League
Really?
field. Yeah, of my team, Dodgers, 27-0.
Wow. What was your position?
On that team, center field.
Oh.
And before any, movies or TV glory, my highlight of my life that my friends still talk about was like the throw.
Oh, the throw.
Yeah, the third, man on first and third. We've never been losing. We're down 4-3, top of the last inning, fly ball, dead center, caught it, catch and throw, threw a strike at home, got him out, double play.
Tagged up.
Yep. I had to go run on, throw a helmet on because I was leading off. I got hit by the pitch, and then Matt Perper walk-off home run 5-4.
Wow.
Yeah, in the semifinals of the Tournament of Champions, which was basically the championship because then we blew out the Reds 12-0 in the finals.
The tag up throw.
Oof.
One of the best plays in baseball.
Everyone knows what's happening.
If you can pull it off. And that there's something, it's interesting because everyone gets caught up in the catch.
Right.
But great catches are great catches. But throwing a guy out at home plate.
No better feeling.
Nothing better. And you have the most time to enjoy it because you're out in center field.
Exactly.
You get to see what happened in real time, and then the long trot back to the dugout.
We had a super strict coach. I wasn't even allowed to call him by his first name. It's called Mr. Sayuda, real name Jerry. And he never got excited. When we won our actual Little League, series before the tournament, we weren't even allowed to like jump up and throw our gloves. It was like you go, you line up, you shake hands, and that's it. And you go home. And the fact that he jumped out of his skin and his big old glasses like flew off from that throw was like a huge momentum swing and like a big moment for me that I like made him like kind of jump.
Did you do the move when he's tagging up, where you hold back a little and then catch the ball going
1,000%.
forward, and then if you do it right, you can launch yourself.
It was poetry. So I literally, because you take your first steps back.
Right.
So I backed up so I could get a real good crow hop, and it was just a fluid motion. And we actually had like a skills challenge that weekend where it was like all about this throw. And I wasn't thrilled with how I did, because it's not game situations too. You're basically trying to pitch from center field. It just doesn't work. And I was overthrowing, underthrowing. It just didn't feel right, but I got it when it counted.
And you had a guy on third tagging up, so you didn't probably, I don't know if that pesky shortstop was doing the cutoff bullshit.
No chance.
No chance.
The first baseman definitely went to the pitcher's mound, but I think he ducked once he saw that I had the hole.
One hop?
I think it was a strike, man.
On the fly.
I mean, it was, yeah, it wasn't deep center. It wasn't shallow center. It was like proper center field.
Mm-hmm. Well, center is I always play the outfield too, because I was left-handed, and maybe you can play first base, but it seemed boring. And also, I didn't like the first baseman's glove.
I kind of did.
I thought it looked weird.
Oh, it does look weird, but it's a vibe. It's like, you're like, come on.
We know where you're going. You're going to first base, but I always thought center field, that is the best position.
Captain of the outfield.
In baseball. And there's just something about a fly when the ball is in the air where first things first, you don't think about anything else.
Right.
Under the sun. And then I always use center field as a metaphor for good improv, because I'm always like, if you want to do good improv, you should be like a center fielder right before the ball is hit, which is you're not leaning backwards, you're not leaning forward, right, left, but you're in a position. Like it's just
crack of the bat, you're moving, no matter where it's going.
Right, but it's a crazy neutral, buoyant position where you have an equal amount of weight on your right and the left, and the foot's forward a little, and it's like that feeling. I said, when you do good improv, that's this position you're supposed to be in.
Totally. It's like prepared, but like ready to kind of like adapt if you have to.
Whatever direction this ball is going, and if you're good, like in center, you can read where that thing's coming off the bat really fast. And
you have carte blanche to call anyone off if you have to. If you're going to dive for it, like this right fielder's going to have to move out of the way.
So was it giving up the dream? I mean,
well,
baseball?
So I juggled it. So once I was really like into theater, I couldn't fully give up baseball, and I was still playing fall ball. I was playing in the summer leagues, and I was playing with like guys that were being recruited for college. I played the Rutgers prep team, and I remember just all the bullshit you do in like the dugout. You just bullshit with your friends. And I remember there was like a moment where guys were talking about like if they couldn't play baseball or they couldn't be with a woman. It was like one of those like, which would you rather? To me, it was just obviously no question. I think it was more like if you could lose your swing or your dick. It was something like that. And obviously that's the question. That answer was easy for me, but like to see the passion and the thought process and how much they loved baseball, I did not have that for baseball. And I think you have to have that, especially. Also, by the way, I didn't have a future in it. I could maybe be the 15th player on a college team. That's it.
Well, the thing about baseball is it doesn't eliminate you as fast as certain sports, because if you want to run 100 meters, we'll know whether you can do this or not, like pretty quick.
Football,
basketball, you get sort of sized out.
Right.
And the greatest moment of my life is when I tried out for the Dodgers as a man show bit a million years ago as a goof, but I could play baseball too. So it's like when we're taking BP or whatever, I was into it, you know. And Tommy Lasorda came and did my radio show, my morning show, some years later, and he was like, if I'd gotten hold of you when you're 18, you could have played professional baseball. And now the thing that's funny is all the guys that were around in the studio all went, come on, Tommy, get out of here. And he's like, I would have thrown you 100 curveballs a day, and you could have done it. I was like, that was the greatest thing I'd ever heard
100%.
Heard in my life. Probably not true,
but maybe true. And just the fact that he thinks it.
He was at Vero Beach when me and Jimmy were trying out back in the day. Do we have that bit. It was a funny man show bit. We went, me and Jimmy were going to try out for the Dodgers, and then Tommy Lasorda was going to tell us what shit we were. That was the bit. He was great. I don't know what the hell we did something in Florida, but it was it just had this recollection of it. And yeah, I loved baseball too, but I was too busy playing football to be really that good at baseball, and I was stupid because I should have played a sport that I could have actually played.
You obviously had more of a future in baseball.
At a slightly higher level than football, which is just, you can't will yourself into football.
Then weren't you boxing a little bit too? I remember you shadow boxing a lot on set.
I used to be a boxing coach. Mm-hmm. I did the Golden Gloves a million years ago. I loved sports, and I really felt like I got a lot out of sports that was applicable to all other endeavors.
Totally.
Wow, we got the man show bit?
You got it? Wow, that was quick.
Wow, that was fast. Dodger Town. Winter. It's me and Jimmy. God, I'm trying to think of who was on the team back then.
But hey, let me tell you something. You're going to put the uniform on, put it on with a lot of pride and dignity. Don't do anything to embarrass this uniform.
Tommy Lasorda. Jimmy just shoved an entire cheeseburger in his...
You walk out on that field, you give it 100%. Give it with everything.
We were talking, yeah.
We're going to give it 110%.
There's no more than 100.
You couldn't look gayer.
Hey, what side of the field does this guy want us on? I gotta take a crap. Does it bother you that Jimmy's sweat smells like beer and cheap hooker perfume? What do you think of this Lasorda, Tommy Lasorda?
I was talking to Kazuki.
Oh, you don't speak any
He's talking
English,
to Japanese pitchers for Jimmy.
What part of Mexico are you from? Oh. Where's that? Near Puerto Vallarta?
Jimmy loved playing baseball too, by the way.
That's a nice bunt. You laid it down.
Keep going, you fat bastard! Can you show us how to hit? All right.
Manny Mota.
There you go.
Come on now, Carolla.
Not a hell of a lot of stars on this Dodgers team, I will say.
Run this one out.
All right, here's a good crack.
Ooh. That was a beautiful swing.
I think I hit a dinger or something. It was good because whoever was there, they weren't acting. They went like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because I clobbered the ball, and I was
That's
like,
a
good.
nice lefty swing. Turned on it.
I miss it, man.
Yeah.
You get in a lot of like softball games and do a lot of
I haven't done a ton of that shit yet. I do like, old people stuff. I do like racquetball and pickleball. I just got knees and like hips that are, I know.
What's going on with pickleball?
I like it.
It's like the fastest growing sport.
Sure.
Someone tweeted me the other day, you got to play pickleball.
I don't do it for the trend. I literally did it because my buddy Arnie was like, you got to try it. It's great. And for me, it's equal parts like ping pong, a little bit of tennis, and racquetball. It's racquetball in that you could hit the shit out of it and give it a ride because it just doesn't travel. So you can hit it with more precision and power than in tennis. It's obviously bigger than ping pong, but it's a smaller court, and it has that quick movement like racquetball. I really dig it.
Is it captured the imagination of the nation or something, or is it just me?
No, I think it is becoming a thing that people are like getting hip to, but I think it's because they do it once or twice. They're like, where has this been? It's not badminton. It's not ping pong. It's not racquetball. It's not squash. It's pickleball.
You sang the national anthem at the Knicks Christmas game, I'm reading
did.
here.
Yeah.
How was that?
Great. I've done it Dodgers. I did NASCAR. I've done some playoff games in Brooklyn, but now I don't. I do it for like. I'm a huge Knicks fan. I'm wearing a Knicks shirt right now. So that's like a big bucket list thing to do it at MSG. So I did Knicks and Rangers, like, separately, obviously.
Dr. Drew's done it at a Kings game.
Can he sing?
He sings opera.
Interesting.
It's funny.
I've never heard him sing.
Oh, there's probably tapes of him singing opera. But what are the nerves like going out for that?
It's all about the lyrics for me and the starting note. So I just have my phone in my ear. I do a little voice memo in the shower that morning before of, oh, say, so I could just do it in my head. So you got to start, because if you start too high, that thing climbs. It's too high. You'll go full Fergie or something like that. And so I make sure I have a good starting note. And honestly, the lyrics are tricky the first couple times because you think you know them. And, you'll start like, Rockets Red Glare are fine, but it's the first verse and the second verse get a little, you can interchange them. What I love is, and I don't, it's not like I could do like theater. I know how to like memorize lines, I've done it on a sitcom, but that one's weird. There's a lot of pressure. It's very quiet and it's an entire arena or stadium. To me, I think Dodger Stadium does this, which I love. Right in your eye line, they just play it for they have the lyrics scrolling across the board. That is all you need. And the fact that that's happening, you won't even need to reference them. But the fact that it's there, God forbid, is the best fail-safe. I recommend it to every stadium. You know what I mean? Just make sure the singer can see it. It will literally, then there's truly nothing to worry about.
So you must feel like the stage and sports really set the table for you in terms of training and what you have to do in TV and movies.
Training, and also like more to your point of what you were saying about like how sports kind of set you up for that team environment. It's similarly to like team and ensemble, to be a part of an ensemble and to be part of theater, which is like such a group mentality. If someone messes up, you're covering them. If someone drops their prop, you pick it up and like things like that. And also, of course, like the same thing with, but also I think work ethic wise, theater's the hardest.
Well, everything that's kind of worth doing needs repetition.
For sure.
And sports and baseball especially, it's just repetition. It's just so much repetition. And repetition usually by nature is kind of boring because it means you've done it 100 times and now you can do it 150 times. But if you're going to do theater, you're going to do a movie, you're going to do a sitcom, you need that. You have to be comfortable with the notion of repetition.
Yes.
Which I don't know. I'm wondering if kids are kind of losing it because they're losing their sense of concentration.
Yeah.
Like there's something very unsatisfying about repetition to a person who's sitting staring at a screen being entertained by other people who participate in repetition so that they can actually witness it.
And they're literally like, this is the generation of people that need a trailer before the trailer to hold their attention for literally 5 seconds to watch the 2-minute trailer.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it. And I also just think that like when it comes to acting, I think any sort of stage experience is kind of vital. Like, it doesn't mean you have to have a Broadway show where you've done 1,000 performances. It could be a community theater when you were younger, but like to have done it where you didn't have the luxury of stopping, obviously, and you were just kind of out there and the performance was all yours, and you're not breaking it into a million little pieces and putting it together like a puzzle, I think is really, really important. I stress it a lot. And I've seen, I would not name names, of course, but I've seen people on TV sets that have awards, and I know and they know that they wouldn't last a day on stage.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even when we would do the Man Show, our one of our producers, Daniel Kellison, he would always go, "It's live. It's just live. It don't stop. There's no possibility of rebooting or redoing. Like, let's just approach this like we're doing a live show."
I love that.
And there is no stopping.
Well, that forces you guys to be on your toes and cover for things. And I'm sure a lot of magic and a lot of great humor, a lot of good improv probably came from those moments.
Yeah. What is your improv background, or is there an improv
I've done
background?
a little. I mean, I've improved, obviously, like on sets. I've done movies that were pretty much like entirely improv.
Really?
And yeah, and I did this movie called 21 and Over with the writers of The Hangover. And we always did like one on bookish. And then the second one, me and actor Miles Teller would just kind of improv and then do alts and all sorts of stuff. And then a lot of those like third and fourth takes were the thing that got into the movie because it just felt probably like you and Jimmy, very fresh. I've also done like some UCB and Groundlings. Like I've been a guest monologist, or I actually did a full musical improv show with a Groundlings group that does it for years. And they were mad at me. And I'm not, sounds like a humble brag, but I took to it very well. Just because I think not only do I understand like satirizing musicals, but I was just kind of in a good zone that night. I had some friends that came out and saw it, but like, what the fuck? Like, that was insane. You were like the star of that thing. And so that was like super fun. I take to it pretty well, but I've never really done the full like UCB 101, 201, 301, 401 thing.
Well, you had the center field
exactly
experience out there to bring on the stage.
Exactly.
Nothing's in a vacuum or a bubble. It all kind of affects whatever it is you're doing. I mean, I got my break in radio playing a guy who was a shop teacher, but it's only because I was a carpenter that I was able to kind of take all the knowledge that I had as a carpenter and sort of graft it onto this character.
Right.
And I think people do too much compartmentalizing, like, oh, how's working at McDonald's going to help this? And it's like, I got a lot out of working at McDonald's.
Absolutely.
Number one thing was I don't want to work at fucking McDonald's. Like,
right.
I'd be to be motivated to do something I want to do.
Right. Also, the truth is funny. That's like what they kind of teach you in improv, that like don't try to make a joke. Just be the shop clerk. Like eventually the funny will come. Just like play the actual scene. And yeah, be thinking, of course, of like how to jump B and just go straight from A to C is what they obviously say.
Yeah. So what for you, I mean, I met you right at the kind of beginning when you got here in LA in 2009. You've been pretty much employed.
I mean, I haven't got to get a side job, thankfully.
You haven't had to get a side job. But then if you took a look at your trajectory, if you were stock, it would be a constant sort of climbing up. Then, so what's in the future? Is there writing? Is there producing?
Yeah, well, Jimmy and I actually sold a show to ABC a while ago. So I am always like kind of developing, but I don't like to kind of rush that because I really want the idea to come. It's really hard to just like come up with $1 million idea, but if something comes to me, then I'll go full steam ahead. And that was something I did with Jimmy, where it was like a funny former boy band star kind of turned, single dad situation. I write a lot of music. I've been really digging that. I've released a couple songs like through the pandemic, but not that I'm not proud of it. I just think that kind of led me to where I'm at now, meeting certain people that I think are a bit more equipped to really release it properly. And I have like 6 to 8 songs on deck. I'll probably start releasing them in the spring, and it'll become some sort of an album.
What kind of music is it?
It's like pop-ish. I'll send you some stuff. I think you might dig it.
I think I will.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I won't say anything.
I mean, also you can. Music is very subjective, but I think I like it.
I don't know. They're writing on my screen, Rebel Wilson. You're telling
Rebel.
me.
Well, probably like What's She Like? Because we did Pitch Perfect together.
Yeah. I mean, I've never met Rebel Wilson, but she seems to be a delight. She's lost, I don't know. How much weight has she lost?
I don't know. Oh, quite a lot. I mean, she's always mentioned doing that. I think she's just like, it was just like she went through a bit of a lifestyle change. I mean, I always thought she's like beautiful. So I hate when people are like, what do you think of? It's like, she's you know what I mean? She's like, as long as she's happy to me. But she's like very crafty, very smart, very funny. She's not as on as people would think she is. Like in real life, she almost seems like she's stoned, but she doesn't do that. But she almost seems like she like took a big bong hit or something because she's just super chill. It's like a really toned down version of what you'd expect.
We have Dr. Drew singing the national anthem. Where was he?
This is King's Game.
King's Game.
Yeah.
Oh, say, can you see?
I know, you thought it was Jim Neighbors.
By the
My God.
dawn's early light,
What's
what so proudly we hailed,
Yeah, he's going full opera on this.
at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
This is a Les Mis audition.
All the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air.
What I like about that is he really keeps the pace up.
Oh yeah.
He's not letting it breathe too much. He keeps it in a low key. See, it's all about that starting note.
Well, he could have taken the under on a prop bet. He will do that. He'll volunteer services to sing national anthem and then go to Vegas and then take the under on the time.
That's
It's
phenomenal.
a prop bet and fucking hammer it. That's where he gets all his booger sugar money.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
people don't know that about Drew.
I might be following that model my next time.
So what is so you grow up, it's kind of interesting that your mom was that into what she saw you were into maybe before you saw it in
a way.
yourself.
In a way, I think she nudged me. I think it was that typical, like, I don't know, like the play. I don't want to do the school play. Like, I want to play sports. And it wasn't like I was against it. I just was a little scared. Like, I thought that I liked singing. I liked music. I didn't know about acting. I didn't know about like singing as a character. I just didn't understand that. I never done it before. And I would like sing a little bit at my like piano recital maybe. We would always like harmonize in the car, you know what I mean? To like the
your
radio.
mom?
My mom and I, you know.
Was your mom have some showbiz in her background?
No showbiz, but a naturally gifted voice for sure. Yeah, coming from her dad, who's my grandpa. There's like that was the kind of the musical side of the family.
And how was Dad with this endeavor?
Dad can rock. Dad can roll. He
Really?
can sing. Yeah, everyone's got rhythm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he used to teach the hustle in
dance.
in Brooklyn growing up.
Really?
So he's like looks like Tony Soprano, but he could be light on his feet.
Do you remember the song Chris and Dawson, the hustle?
To the hustle.
Remember the dance?
I don't know the dance, but I do know the song.
They did it in Boogie Nights, right?
I don't
that
know if
that-
they
is that
did the
it?
hustle in Boogie Night. Oh, I'm sure they did. Yeah, it was, before the Macarena. That's where you really got on board. But
yeah, that's more of my
there
thing.
was a song. By the way, I guess they'd always had the jitterbug or something. Like
Right.
they always had.
Electric Slide
Yeah, the hustle was 1975
for sure.
or something.
It was disco era.
It was disco era, but even kind of toward the beginning of disco era,
Sure.
because I remember hearing it at my Pop Warner football practice because I think the cheerleaders were like working on it, and I had to be 10 or something. Well, we can figure out. Your dad taught the hustle.
He taught the hustle, and he still busted out at like the weddings and the bar mitzvahs.
Really?
Oh yeah. He like spins he does the whole like behind the back, like puts her behind the back kind of a move.
So your parents were not in the arts per se, but they understood it. It wasn't like a lot of these people, talked to a lot of comedians and stuff. Their dad didn't even know. I think I was talking to Jim Belushi about this. I was like, Albanian dad runs a restaurant, like doesn't know what the fuck's going on, like with your stupid jokes.
Right, of
like
course.
you have to get a job, this is nonsense. You're never going to mount to anything. So you didn't really, after high school, did you just go right into it?
Well, at that point I had done a couple workshops in the city, but workshops tend to lead to nowhere. They're just kind of opportunities for writers of shows to work on their show. But one of them was that show Spring Awakening that I had mentioned, which eventually did go to Broadway. But in between the workshop and Broadway, I went to one semester at NYU to theater school. And I, towards the end of my first year, had to re-audition for Spring Awakening, and NYU was kind of pissed about it because you're not allowed to audition for outside things, and especially as a freshman. But I was previously attached to this thing, and so it was kind of a no-brainer once I booked it to take a leave of absence that ended up being a permanent leave of absence.
So have you not had a civilian job? I mean, outside
I
of
have.
What were some of your civilian jobs?
In high school, I was a telemarketer.
Oh, really?
I worked at a kind of a hippie organic grocery store where I was the deli boy. So I would make like wheatgrass shots and all green smoothies for these like burnt out Woodstock old people in my hometown. What else did I do? I worked at Hollister for a quick minute. That sucked.
Why?
Because they were just like they were just douches. I mean, like the way that they ran it was just like they made us say these taglines.
What is Hollister?
Hollister's like the West Coast Abercrombie.
Oh, okay.
So, but I was in New York, so it was very like glorifying like surfing and having rips in your hats. And essentially, we had to say these corporate taglines to people instead of being like, "Hey, could I help you with anything?" Be something like, "Hey, do you support our flops?" Or like,
Oh,
could I
right.
get you into some good fitting jeans? And they would have corporate spies if you weren't saying these things. Also, I was never given good hours or really hours at all because they would always try to get the hot girls to get the good hours.
I always remember the lingo when I worked at McDonald's, and I always felt the same way. Like there's a couple things. I know that feeling,
right?
The feeling. So when I worked at McDonald's, it was, cheese count on Max, please. I was working the grill, and they go cheese 3, please, and I'd go burgers up, wrap, please. But I remember, but I know that feeling, and it's interesting.
It's a little soul
We
crushing.
should drill down on it because when I taught comedy traffic school for Let Us Amuse You traffic school, lettuce spelled like garden lettuce because they're comedy. I remember when we were doing like the orientation, and they were like, now look, people could go to Sears for $19 to go to traffic school, but they're coming to Let Us Amuse You, and we charge like $28. You know? And they want comedy, like they want comedians. And we want them to think that they're getting some hot, fresh comedic talent teaching comedy traffic school. And so they kept going like, really embellish your credits. I didn't have any comedic credits. I was working as a carpenter during the week, and then on weekends I'd teach comedy traffic school. And they're like, really talk yourself up, like hot things, shows,
Johnny Carson
touring,
spots,
spots and stuff like that. But I'm like, we're at a YMCA in Conejo, and it's Sunday, and it's 7:45 in the morning, and I'm getting $82 a class.
Right.
So how much, sort of comedic trajectory here, like how hot is my career right now that I am here?
Right.
Like it's going to be difficult for me to embellish too much because
you could work it into the story a bit. This is kind of how you give back.
Yeah, but comedians don't get up at 6:15 in the morning and drive to Conejo.
Right. It's noon or bust.
Right. So I was like, I always felt uncomfortable doing it. And they're like, you got to do it. And I was like, it feels so weird.
Right.
And I had that feeling. You had that feeling at Hollister.
I had that feeling at Hollister, and I feel like you and I are similar in that, like, we get more out of just kind of being ourselves, Or even if it is like a high pressure job, at least yourself turned up to 11.
Yes.
And when you have because that's the thing is that the people that would come in would hate this weird, fake feeling thing thrown at them.
Right.
Hey, can I get you into some good fitting jeans? What's that, bro?
Right.
Rather than just like, hey, can I help you? Or leaving them alone. People actually want to be left alone until they're ready for a fitting room or whatever.
Yes.
So you're that annoying guy. You're paid to be that annoying guy.
Chris, you had a bad interview? An interview gone bad with Hollister?
Yeah. When I was looking for a job, I applied at Hollister. I got an interview. It was a group interview, so there was like 10 of us there. And we all met at the food court. And then this girl comes up. She's pretty hot, and she's like, "Okay, everyone." She's telling us about the job, and she stands us all. She's like, "I want everyone to stand up and form a line, like we're in the military or something." She's like walking back and forth, and she's just telling us about this gig. And then she goes, "All right, the main thing here is, I want you all to just know if you're working at Hollister, you gotta look like you just you got back from the beach."
That's right.
right. Like you just got back from the beach and you started your shift. And then she looks at like 4 of us, and I'm one of them. And she's like, "You can go,
bro. You got
you guys can go."
out.
And it's probably
That's a hate crime.
That's awful.
I thought that was a hate. I probably would have had a better chance wearing what Skylar wore to your pilot audition. Like I was just wearing like a button-up shirt and some slacks. But yeah,
my thing was it was all like, if you're stranded on a desert island, what fruit would you bring or whatever? And you have to say something that's surfer-ish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like a lemon because I'm sweet and then sour.
When I auditioned for Party Pals, which was one of those places where you put on the outfit of one of the Ninja Turtles and you show up at the kids' party. First things first, I was 28. Like, I was not in high school. Like, the career was not going well. And one of my friends in my improv troupe, in the Acme Improv Troupe, was going to try out for Party Pals. And he's like, "You should come with me. This is a pretty sweet gig." And it was like, well, I was working as a carpenter, and I was like, well, it kind of feels like show business, like a paying showbiz gig, to go to a kid's party, dress as a turtle, and perform. And I said, okay. And we got into this room, and the Party Pals person was putting everyone through their paces, and they're like, let's do a big improv game. And we did that one that's called Machine or whatever, where you start doing a repetitive motion and a sound, and then someone else connects to you and does another motion. You end up being like the inner workings of a clock or something. And I was going, God damn it, this is embarrassing. Like, I don't even want to be here. And there was like 12 of us. And of course she points at me and goes, why don't you start us out? And the start out person's the worst because it always takes 20 minutes for the next person. So I'm like standing in this room. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't even want to be here. Like, I have a skill. I'm a carpenter. I don't have to dress like a turtle. But she pointed at me, and I started doing this half-ass, kind of half-hearted, repetitive motion. And everyone's just looking at me, and she was just looking at me. And it'd been a while. And then I go, do you want me to make a sound? And she goes, it'd be nice.
Oh, God.
We're going, oh, fuck. And I did it, and one of the girls who joined at the very end did something, got down on the floor, and when she came up, she bonked her head on a metal rail that was on a folding table and fucked herself up. So they stopped the whole thing, and everyone went home. And my buddy Paul, who ended up being all the voices for like Animaniacs, Paul Rugg is his name. He got the call, and I got the call too.
Leonardo? Raphael?
Yeah, or
Any of them?
you could show up as, I don't know, they just give you an outfit.
Sylvester, whatever.
Yeah, but you had to put it on when you're driving up to the party
Well, of
because
course,
they couldn't
'cause you
see
can't
with your
get-
fucking head off. You'll traumatize one of the kids. But I was like, nah, I think, I don't know. I'm going to pass on this one.
Right.
And he went on and did it for a couple of years, I think.
Bugs Bunny and a Camry.
I love to hear about everyone's shit job interviews.
Of course. I mean, telemarketer was interesting because you actually are encouraged to lie. You're encouraged to not say your name. So I killed that job because I was practicing dialects, probably things you shouldn't even really be doing, especially nowadays, but it was anonymous. It was fair game. So I was doing different voices for whatever kind of person I was calling, and all I had to do was keep them on the phone long enough to get a little bit of their mortgage information. I think their current interest rate and what they pay monthly on a mortgage. But that's a personal question. Like, people don't want to just answer that. But that's all I did. I was one of the grunts, just getting that, and then I passed it off to the supervisor, and I got commission. And that was a sweet paying job. It was like $15 an hour then in 2004 or 5.
Yeah.
And commission on top of that. But there was this 500-pound man who ran it, who loved, because it was like the best job you could get in my high school, but it had a very short shelf life because he just loved, oh yeah, well, you're fired. He just loved firing people on the spot, and you just go home early. So as long as you could keep on that job, you could. And I had it for a minute.
But then once out of high school and into college, or 1 year of college, that's where...
No side jobs. My best side job, but not side job, but job in the industry was doing those scratch recordings for Wreck-It Ralph. Because I was making as much as unemployment, but I didn't feel like I was just waiting and collecting a check. I was like doing kind of, work.
When I did Wreck-It Ralph, I didn't even know what it was. I had no idea. I just showed up somewhere in Burbank, did the dialogue a little bit, didn't seem like anything, completely forgot about it, and had no thoughts until 2 years later. They're like, they're doing the premiere. And I was like, for what? And like, I just had no, I don't know what that is. I really have no thoughts about what I'm doing when I'm doing it. So for some reason, I just never gave it any consideration, but I was happy I was in it.
Yeah, well, we have the best gig for that. I mean, not the scratch recording is a lot of work and a lot of consistent work, but generally you read it off a page a few times, and then other people work their ass off for 2 years, and then you get to go and see this beautiful thing. I mean, Wreck-It Ralph, I was at that premiere. It was amazing. And there's so much thought that goes into it and so much hard work, but the voice actor gig is great. Show up in sweatpants, always in Burbank. Never not in Burbank. Yeah, Soundworks or one of those spots, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I Also, well, let me hold that thought for a second. Let me just hit a spot here. Let me hit Keeps. More than 50 million men in the U.S. suffer from male pattern baldness. Keeps, a simple, stress-free way to keep your hair. Convenient virtual doctor consultations and medications delivered straight to your door every 3 months in discreet packaging. Low cost, starts at just $10 per month. Treatment plans are typically half the cost of the pharmacy prices. Proven results. Keeps has more 5-star reviews than its competitors. Check out before and after photos on their website. Prevention, well, that's the key. Treatment can take 4 to 6 months to see results, so you got to act fast. It's Keeps, right, Dawson?
If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/Adam to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's keeps.com/Adam to get your first month free. keeps.com/Adam.
Sorry, I dropped something. All right, we'll take a quick break. Back with Skylar Astin right after this. All right, back with our friend Skylar Astin. I'll shoot out your Twitter and Instagram at Skylar Astin. And music is coming out in the spring, so we'll keep you guys posted on that. Grey's Anatomy, 18th season. I'm looking down here. Jesus Christ.
We've been working hard, man, over there. We really have. It's
been
a great 18 years.
So you showed up this season, right? Yeah. How does that work? Do you do a read? Do you do a chemistry test? Do you do an audition?
This one was a straight offer, which was very nice.
Oh, that's nice.
And it was a 3-episode arc.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it hasn't aired just yet, so I'm not quite allowed to say what I'm doing. But it's going well enough that I know they want to keep me a lot longer than those 3 episodes.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm making a nice impression, have quite a bit of chemistry with the people I'm working with. And it's such a fun job. I mean, first of all, they shoot in Silver Lake, which is where I used to live. And I have recently been working a lot. I shot a TV series in Albuquerque for 2 seasons. I shot a TV series in Vancouver, which, by the way, great cities, but just not where my home is. Mm-hmm. And so it's so nice to be able to go to your own bed and stuff's so dialed in there. The crew has been there for years and years, like since the beginning. A lot of them. And there's a reason. It's a really, really like healthy work environment, which is kind of, sadly rare.
I don't think people underestimate the power of not being a douche when it comes to being invited back to a set. It's not much different than a party. I mean, you have to be able to, hit your spots, do your lines. You have to be competent. But then beyond that, I mean, we've all been in so many meetings where it's like people go like, I don't want to work with that guy again. Like, I just don't. It's not worth it.
It's a hang. I mean, you're on set for hours and hours and hours, and so if you have that asshole, it's not fun. And a lot of times people can get away with things because they make the other people a lot of money and there's some sort of commodity. But especially on a show like that where the show is the star, like they don't need. I mean, other than their really key players who are all really lovely to work with anyway. I mean, they kill people on that show, so you could easily go.
I've been privy to a lot of life's too short discussions where it's like, I just don't want to work with that. And sometimes it's the director, or sometimes it's whoever, but I don't want to work with them again. We have a scene from our sitcom pilot.
Oh, no
from
way.
CBS that I haven't seen.
Apparently,
since it came
I'll give you
out.
an honest perspective of how old I look.
This is Skylar on the sofa and me walking in to my fake living room.
You humiliated him in front of his teammates.
Couldn't have been more embarrassing than getting into his dad's Z-Best Driving Academy car.
This coming from the guy who was put on academic probation at Arizona State. The #1 party school in the nation sobered up just long enough to toss your ass out.
Well, maybe I'll just have to follow my stepfather into the fast-paced, lucrative world of driving instruction.
Driving instructor, inventor. And my thermic couch is this close to rolling off the assembly line, and when it does, we're moving to a gated community, and guess which side of the gate you're gonna be on.
Oh, is your heated sofa gonna be as successful as your sports drink for dogs?
I'm not gonna apologize for Unleashed. At least I'm trying. When are you making your big move into the workforce?
There's a little something going on called an economic crisis. Don't know if you've heard, but people aren't hiring.
Especially when they have to bring the application to your house.
Are I checked on Eddie. He's fine.
He said he was fine in the car.
Yeah, but before you know it, he'll be a teenager and he'll be too old for me to burst into his bedroom unannounced. Remember time?
Yes. That was a great day.
God, it seems surreal almost to watch that, right?
I've never seen that before. I believe that was the audition scene too. So I'm like, wow, I've done that scene far too many times.
Chris reminded me of a story from that, which is the other son.
Yes, I know this.
The other son, we couldn't find my son, and then one showed up and we canned him or whatever it is, and we had to do a run through, and we didn't have a young son, like a 7-year-old.
He was cast, but he couldn't make it till the following day or something like that.
He was in Canada, I think.
Right, that's right.
And speaking of that, so when we cast you, I raised my hand and went, I think he's too big and too old. And they're like, shut up. And then when we cast my son via Zoom from Canada, Kevin Hench, the guy I created the show with, raised his hand and went, we're going to hire a guy sight unseen. And they were like, shut up. We know what we're doing. That guy came out, shit the bed for the pilot. And again, no one ever says, sorry.
Right.
You may have been right about this one. They'll just look at you with a straight face and go, yeah, the guy from Canada, he was no good. We got to get rid of him. Right. And I'm like, hello, that's what we're worried about. But I had to run a bunch of scenes with a dwarf, because we didn't have a 3-foot son for me to do my scenes with. So they brought in this. It was such a surreal moment. Like, I was standing on our fake set. I was looking out into the bleachers, and I saw this little person. I don't know if you're allowed to say dwarf or midget. I don't know what the rules are.
I think it's little person.
I saw this little person come walking out, and I was like, I don't remember ordering a little person. Like, I remember what's he doing here? And then I stopped.
I also don't think you're allowed to say order a little person.
Okay. I don't think you're okay. I don't remember ordering a dwarf. That's what I think.
Perfect.
And I stopped and I went, wait a minute, Adam. The guy's probably got a job here doing something.
Some crew member.
He's a crew member.
Sure.
He's just a dude and he's working here somewhere. So why are you thinking that way? And then he walked up to me and they're like, he's going to be your son. And this guy was in his 60s.
Yes, he was an older man.
And I was like having to take a knee and go, listen,
son.
Jacob, you're my son and I love you. And it's this guy was just staring at me the whole time. And I thought, it couldn't get more surreal than this.
It happened to be the most sentimental scenes that you had to do with this little person.
Also, the whole system, and you tell me what you think about this, but the whole system seems to be loosely based on, will you crack in this insane environment? Which is to say, like, they do your table reads, they have the kitchen. The kitchen's got the table, and obviously there's no fourth wall. That's where the audience is.
Right.
And when the executives watch your table read, they don't sit in the bleachers. They sit in folding chairs right up against the edge of your fake kitchen, and you're 4 feet away from them, and they're all kind of making notes and looking at their phones and
Very
stuff like that.
Very stiff environment, yeah.
And it's sort of like, wouldn't this be better if you guys were a little out of my sight? Like, I'm trying to look at my son, but I can see two of your big heads right behind him.
Right.
Like, wouldn't this, like, if I was running that thing, I'd be like, you know, I'm sure the actors, it's kind of a high pressure environment for them. Like, why don't we go back into the wings a little? Like, why don't we step back? We'll sit up at the bleachers. We won't be lit. We'll be watching stuff like right in your grill.
Right.
And I thought, why they need to do this?
Well,
and
they
then I
don't.
thought they don't. And then I was like, maybe they're just seeing if it fucks you up.
I think there's a little bit of that in there. I think the fact that, we're not network executives, because I think they kind of maybe get off a little bit on that power and that control and that fear. And also it's like, well, if you can't handle this, then how will I invest millions of dollars into other high pressure situations? And maybe it's not that thought out. And again, I have to say I'm an actor for hire. I definitely would like to work on a network. But in general, network executives, in my experience, I've been on development calls. I've had notes calls like you have. And a lot of times they focus on certain backstories of things that you kind of can't cram into a 19-minute pilot.
Right.
And especially with a comedy, like it tends to get a little bit less funnier each table read because you're trying to get exposition in, and it's like it doesn't matter. It was kind of the funniest at the table read.
Right.
And it's just because everyone wants to have an opinion. I've been on network calls where like the grandma, does she have to be old? And you're like, it's the grandma. And it tends to happen that way. And I know that sounds like bitter, but I do think in a lot of ways, if you hire these creative people, you hire Adam Carolla, Jimmy Kimmel, like stay away, let them turn in what they're going to turn in and make every judgment you can, but don't try to like micromanage along the way. And I wonder if it would be a higher success rate. But that obviously is not how it's set up, and I'm sure there's an argument against that too.
Not really. I think it would be higher too. Look, there's no form of art that works that way. Like if you're a painter, you couldn't have a group of people standing around going, "You sure you want to do those water lilies?" Right. You know, like or music, or
totally
anything you've ever appreciated, any Woody Allen movie, any great poem, any great piece of opera. It's just the committee.
The committee
gets you it gets you a beige minivan.
Right.
Because it's like, well, but we need room for 8, okay, but we need mileage. Okay, but we want performance. Like,
and I feel like red is a little too polarizing. What if we go with like a lighter and then it ends up being beige?
A beige minivan is what the committee makes. There's no Borats.
Yeah, it tests well, or they think it'll test well.
The one that always drives me nuts is inevitably you write those scripts and they always do that thing where it's like, Nancy Tellem didn't get the Burning Man joke. And I'll go, what's a Burning Man? It's a thing.
Right,
Well, she says she hasn't heard of it. And I go, well, all right, she's not 19. And then they go, yeah, could we change that one? And I'm like, because the middle-aged broad's never heard of Burning Man? And they're like, yeah, just come on, just do it for her. Do it for her kind of thing. And you're like, why are we watering this thing down because a person in their 50s hasn't heard of this thing that everyone else has heard of?
Right. And meanwhile, we're trying to target the other demographic, by the way. It's what happens with art and commerce. It's like the age-old tale of like a bunch of people with MBAs making creative decisions, but they do have the power and they do have the purse. And it's kind of like that's the negotiation that we have to kind of deal with and thread that needle.
Yeah. It's nice, I'm guessing, when Jay Moore, you can look this one up. I think Jay Moore, who was in here earlier in the week, he got a sitcom picked up where he played like Gary Unmarried.
Of course.
Yes, he played.
That's who we were trying to replace.
He played a house painter, I think, who lived in way too nice a house for a painter. But yeah, I remember Gary Unmarried was Jay Moore's. I forgot to bring that up with him because it all kind of feels like a dream at this point.
It also feels like yesterday and a million years ago at the same time. Because that Gary Unmarried just flew right out too. I knew it.
I know, and it hasn't come out of my mouth in 11 years. Exactly. And now it's like Gary Unmarried.
Right.
Yes. God, that was such a weird. It's also like a weird time. There he is. The complete first season of Gary Unmarried. Oh, there's a box set, or you can get a DVD or something.
Yeah,
like that?
it went 2 seasons. So
it went 2
that's
seasons.
Right.
We were trying to be the new. It's so funny to think like we were trying to, because that was like the blue collar comedy kind of thing that we were going for.
Yeah. Now, what happened, which is interesting, is so when we're all done with our pilot, there was a lot of everyone really likes it, and we're feeling really good about getting on the schedule and blah blah blah. And then, but it got beat out by Jenna Elfman's.
That's right. Accidentally on purpose.
Accidentally on purpose. And then we're like, oh, I thought we were going to get the slot. And then they go, Les Moonves makes like the ultimate decision, and he loves the ladies. And it was like, oh, yeah, he does love the ladies. And we found out later maybe he liked them too much.
Right.
But it also just goes to show you how many different forces are at play at any given time, and that you'll never really know the full story of anything.
Yeah.
And
there's a pilot I did for ABC that I did with Dan Fogelman, and literally like and I know every actor has a story, but it's like one of those that's like, that had the recipe for success like you could never believe. It would be on the air in its 8th season right now, and we would be doing this from my mansion because it was an NBA project. 7 years in the making. NBA and ABC came together. Mike Tolan, all these powerful pieces, and it was kind of like I was playing kind of a Billy Crystal character, and it was kind of my giant, where I'm this American who speaks Lingala, and I don't know anything about the NBA. And then there's this guy from the Congo who comes over who doesn't know anything about America. And it's a buddy comedy, really simple. But we had the keys to the kingdom at Oracle Arena for the Warriors. That was who we were playing. Anyway, long story short, it was all but locked. It was a formality that we were even shooting the pilot. It had more production value than it ever should because we had all of these awesome, perks. And at the last minute, the head of the network at the time, he's a British guy. He said something about, when they go to the match instead of go to the game. That was Dan's first, uh-oh. And it's like a famous story that ABC studio executives were crying, banging down his door when he locked himself in a room, because that's often what happens. It's like the captain goes down with the ship. So these kind of heads of the network do get full final say. And they're also blamed when the show doesn't do well, and then they get replaced every 2 years, which is another part of the flawed system, I think, because shows can't go past 2 seasons because there's all this turnover, and then there's these new executives that want to do their own shows. But anyway, this one in particular, he came out and was like, we're doing Muppets, Uncle Buck, this, that, the other thing, and then we were just like left on the floor. And it happens all the time. I wonder how many shows would just be huge successes that have never seen the light of day.
I was doing like American Top Gear or some version of some car thing or whatever that was supposed to go over at ABC. And they had put Knight Rider 2.0 like back on network. And everyone was like, Knight Rider back on prime time? Like, that's what we're doing. And it just died 1,000 deaths. And it was like, okay, no more car shows. And it's like we had a Top Gear, sort of buddy travel sort of docu car series that was the antithesis of Knight Rider, but because Knight Rider burnt out, it was no more car shows. And there's so many of those goddamn stories.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, there's a lot of, it's not even the guy every time. Sometimes it's his wife. We had Loveline was supposed to be a syndicated TV show. The Man Show was a pilot on ABC too that got beat out by Cupid.
With Bobby Cannavale and Kristen Chenoweth?
No, Cupid, I think with Jeremy Piven.
Okay.
I think as I recall. So we're trying out for ABC, and we ended up at Comedy Central a year later. But Loveline, you ever go to a NAPTY convention?
No. That's
where they sell all the syndicated shows.
Okay.
And they trotted me and Dr. Drew out to Vegas, and you sit at a booth. It's just a convention for syndicated shows. Yeah. And we cleared Loveline in like 96% of the market to be a syndicated late night TV show. And at the last second, they just pulled the plug. And the syndicators are like, we've never seen a show clear 90-something% of the country and then get the plug pulled. And it ended up on MTV a year later, whatever. Anyway, but I do, and it was like, yeah, the guy's wife didn't like, or she's Christian or whatever. Who the fuck knows? It can be anything.
Yeah, there's this great scene in a movie called The TV Set, which is like painfully close to what we've both experienced many times, and it's all about this guy David Duchovny trying to get his pilot made, and Sigourney Weaver plays the head of the network. And there's this like insane scene where she's watching her niece, this 12-year-old niece, watch the show, and she's like, "What do you think?" You know what I mean? And she's like looking at the net. She's like, I think his hair, I don't like his beard. Right. And it's kind of satirical, but it's so true that then this actor gets replaced because he can't even, and they're like, well, he could shave. It's like, no, get rid of him. Right. And it's like, these people are human beings at the end of the day, and they're glorified as these, decision makers. But it is true. Like I don't like sometimes when I'm on set and producers or people, I've gotten a little bit better, but they want to like show me audition tapes. And to me, like the painful actor in me is like, I hate that this is how you're watching them, and the way in which you're talking about it, and how little of the audition that you're actually watching, and all these kinds of things. And it's so subjective, and like, I even have the power if I'm some offshoot of some producer, but I'm, one of those guys on the show. And if I gave a yes or a no, like I'm deciding this person's fate, it just seems a little gross.
I can tell you as the guy who sat on the other side of the mahogany desk and had like 800 women read to be my wife, I can tell anyone who's listening who's going on audition, you haven't got it when they're too complimentary and they talk too much after the audition. So I started noticing this pattern that every chick who just was a hard no was like, oh, okay, do we have your info? And where can we be reached? Because your brain is doing a weird psychological overcompensation. Now, the ones that fucking nailed it, you're in business mode. Like, that was really good. We'll talk to you soon.
Sure.
Thank you. And they say it's a real economy of words. Like, okay, that's it. Because they want to get them out of the room and go, okay, I think this is a real possibility. Like they have this real.
They don't want to talk to the person. They want to talk amongst themselves.
Right. And the sooner the person that just nailed the audition get the fuck out of the room, we could start talking about it. Is she New York based? Is she LA based? Whatever. The ones that lay an egg, everyone overcompensates. Oh, that was awesome. Oh, it was whatever.
That's
so it's like
so
the more they tell you how great you are, the further you were from getting that job. Probably works that way with dates too.
Totally. There's a little bit of them and it's like feeling bad. So they kind of want to so that when you get told no, you at least know they liked the read and it wasn't personal.
Right.
Wow.
But it is a total economy of words if you seriously just nailed that.
That's
part.
So funny. The one time I've booked something off tape with a casting director, I thought it was the worst audition I've ever had. And I thought that there would be a million other hoops, and then 2 months later, I got the call that I got it. I was like, she was so mean. She kicked me right out of the room. It was my first movie ever. I wonder if that was the situation.
I think there is this person's never going to get this role, so let's send him out on a cloud of bullshit versus, oh, this person can do. It's kind of, it's weird, but like when you're sort of talking to a plumber or a mechanic or something, when you sort of go, I'm going with this guy, you get to business.
Right.
And it's not so much, so how long you been doing this? Right. Like it's just boom, boom, boom. Like you get into business mode real fast. And I think from a psychodynamic standpoint, that's what takes place in those rooms.
That's fascinating.
I also had, oh God, I'm trying to think of, I think it was Rosanna Arquette came in the annals of the most uncomfortable. I grew up like watching Desperately Seeking Susan and like other movies that she was in. She's kind of a babe and everything, and she came in to like audition to be my wife, and I was, I'm not like, who am I? Like at some point she had a nervous breakdown
in the room.
Yeah. And she was like, Adam, why do I have to do this? You know what I can do, And I'm like, I know, I beat off to your movies. Like, I know, believe you me, you could play my wife.
Right.
You should be able to, in my world, you should be able to fire me and replace me with.
And in another world, you'd be auditioning for her.
Right,
to play her husband.
I was like, I'd be turned. She like literally started break down. Like, why do I have to go through? Haven't I done enough? Like, don't we know? My feeling was always like, you don't know Rosanna Arquette can act?
Right.
She's been in 25 movies.
Do you want Rosanna Arquette? Because then you should hire her. If you don't want Rosanna Arquette, then don't hire her. We don't have to
think she's capable of playing a wife in a sitcom?
Right. It's weird. I mean, I have friends that, I audition for things all the time. I put myself on tape. I have to slate. And I really try to be humble about this stuff and be like, look, I get it. There's a lot of people at my level. I'm trying to get to the next. I understand I got to fight for stuff and I'm happy to do it. But there's times when I'm making these slates and I'm like, dude, hi, I'm Skylar Astin. I'm 5'10", and I'm based in Los Angeles. Like, I have to lay this down right now.
Virgo.
And a lot of times, I'm a Virgo. Yeah, by the way, I would like more information, but they want to know my name, my height, and my location. All things that could be sent in the email from my manager. And a lot of times, it's like, we want a wide shot. We want it to zoom into a head and shoulders. And when it hits there, and it's like, what are we doing here?
I did another pilot where, God, Chris, what was the name of the actress who was in the Coen Brothers movie? About the Neighbor or something like that. She's a pretty woman. Anyway, she was like, they wanted to audition her to be my wife, and they were like, good news, because she's in town for the Academy Awards because she just came off this Coen Brothers movie and she's nominated. And I'm like, I think the Coen Brothers can divine who's a good enough actor to be in their 96-minute feature. Do we have to sit down? Like, she's a fine actress. What you don't think she can handle this? Oh, Amy Landecker. That's right. Of course. Amy Landecker. I don't even know what she's up to. She ended up being my wife. She was great. She was a sweetheart. But I was like, she's in a Coen Brothers movie. Why does she need to audition for a shitty sitcom?
Because the business people that run the show need to see it.
That's right.
They need to see all the words. They need to see every scene. They'll make you do the whole pilot for them so they can go, okay, I could see that they can now do the pilot.
Yes, it's why does the diner have to put the parsley by the side of the plate with the eggs? Nobody wants it. It's like, because that's what we do.
That's just what we do.
And I've always said about Hollywood executives, I always said this about network people. I go, if you took beavers and you put them on the roof of the Empire State Building, they would start looking for wood to build a dam because that's what beavers do. And I'm like, that's what executives do. That's how it's done. Just what they do.
Yeah. Why do they have a team of executives, but the head of the network makes all of the decisions, like the actual decisions of what is going on that network? Why? That's just what they do. That's how it's done.
Well, if you want to see Skylar but what's nice is when you get to season 18 or season where once you have a bunch of success, they'll kind of leave you alone. So you've entered at the right time for Grey's Anatomy. Also, the music you'll catch us up on when it's coming out. Twitter, Instagram, Skylar Astin is where you go for that. Always good getting caught up with you, my friend.
Always fun.
I completely agree, and I'm so glad I met you all those years ago, and we pop into each other's lives periodically.
I was too old then, but now I feel like I kind of look the same age as that, right?
You do. You shave that beard. You're right back on my fake sofa.
Let's pitch it to CBS.
You can go to AdamCarolla.com. I'll be in Kansas City doing a couple shows tonight and tomorrow night, right? Yeah. We'll do some live pods there, and I'll do some stand-up there. That's at the Comedy Club of Kansas City. Going to Austin, Texas at Cap City Comedy Club, March 25th and 26th. And you can go to AdamCarolla.com for all the live shows. And until next time, Adam Carolla for Skylar Astin saying mahalo.
Because I was like, well, where am I going to go?
And you're already pot committed at this point.
I mean, we already hired the director and the producer. And, I just paid like $12,500 for these stupid letters behind me.
Right.
Like no one knows that. Like when they say cut, they just break it and throw it in the trash.